Star Connections Radio presents. This podcast is brought to you by NVisionU. NVisionU has discovered how to impact spirit, body, and soul with spray technology in just 30 seconds. With NVisionU, you can achieve optimal health and start living the life you have always dreamed of. Use the promo code NVisionU.com/VernDix to take control of your health naturally.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're hearing this podcast from. Welcome to my podcast, Prospering in Health and Wealth. My name is Verner Dixon. I'm with VM Enterprise, and I am wanting to have a discussion with you about health, wealth, and wellness, and talk about how they actually interrelate with each other and can create a better environment for you, create a better work environment for you, a life situation for you, particularly if you have your health and you can focus on generating your wealth. And I think we'd have a lot to have conversations about. If you're interested, hang around and get your friends and relatives on board. And so let's get underway. Thank you. Let's go.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. I hope you got all your friends and relatives involved and they're sitting there and they're waiting to do their thing and listen to what we have to talk about today. As you know, I try to bring some awesome people on for your pleasure to learn from a health perspective and also learn from a financial perspective. Well, folks, I am going to introduce and let you know that I have an awesome individual. What I call him is a man of many talents. And I met this individual because he reached out to me actually and interviewed me for his program. I don't know what he saw, but anyway, it was great to have an opportunity to meet him as well. So before I introduce him, let him introduce himself, I'm going to give him a little preliminary introduction based on what I've been able to find. My guest by the name of John Solleder is an awesome individual. He's an author of 4 books, 2 bestsellers, 42 years self-employed, and that time reached the top sales level in 4 separate sales organizations. He's also a consultant for some of the largest direct selling companies in the world, traveled and spoke in 60 countries, and I could go on and on and on. But without further ado, I want to introduce you to a man of many talents, John. Hey, John, how you doing?
Verner, I am great, and thank you so much for the invitation.
All
and
right.
The only thing I'll add to that is because, you know, my wife says that I got to pay some bills here. So that's one book, Leave Nothing to Chance.
That's right. All right.
And this book, this was my original book going back to 2010, which I've done three different editions of, the last one being in 2020. And it's funny because those 2 books I just held in my hands there is what got me into podcasting some 6 years ago now, which is amazing. It's been a 6-year journey of podcasting. I've done 347 podcasts about me interviewing people like yourself that was on my show recently. And so that's what got me into that. Was I lost my audience because I couldn't travel, obviously, during COVID. So I said, well, let me do something called a pivot. Yeah. And I pivoted. And I said, well, let me go into using technology, and podcasting made a lot of sense and still does. So yeah, I've been an author, I've been a speaker, I've been a product developer, I've been in the insurance industry off and on for years, not so much from a financial standpoint, but more from a standpoint of wanting to know what's going on in the economy. Because if you want to know what's going on in the economy, get an insurance license. And insurance or accounting, I mean, either one would cover it. And you know this for the simple reason that you find out what our friends in Washington are always up to, because the nice insurance companies give you reports and say, here's what these turkeys are doing. Here's how they're going to try to take more money off of you, you know. So that's kind of what negated that. But yeah, I've had an interesting career, wonderful career, met a lot of great people like yourself, Verner, and still going strong. Going to be 65 here this year, and still going strong, and have no intentions to slow down. And you're an inspiration to me because you got a little bit of time on me, and you're still going strong. And my first mentor, Larry Thompson, he's going to be 81 next month, and he's still going strong. So hey, until the good Lord calls you home, no reason to stop,
That's absolutely true. That's absolutely true. I mean, yeah, you're right. I do have a few years on you. I'm usually in a room with a few years on a bunch of people in the room. I'm the one that's at the top of the scale. But anyway, the things that since I've met you and since we've had conversations, in terms of looking at your background and some of the things that you've done, in addition to the books. And I was going to mention those as well in terms of being able to get those books and get some information that's absolutely phenomenal in terms of your background, what you do, and where you've been. I guess one of the things that I've been thinking about since you're talking about the government and how things are going right now. There's a lot of people who are being laid off, who are looking for jobs, who are, trying to get that side hustle and everything. And like I said, you're a man of many talents. And can you give a little bit information in terms of why you're still doing what you're doing, and give a little motivation to maybe some of those people who are out there looking for something to do? Can we get that? I don't know. You got so much stuff going for you. Got to pick something.
Well, you know what? Here's what I tell people: pick a lane that you're passionate about. And I took that advice from President Reagan when I met him in 1983.
Okay.
The fast story, Verner, and just for the sake of time, I'll tell a Reader's Digest version.
Okay.
April 83, I'm going to probably go into the United States Marine Corps. And on a Saturday, I'm making that decision. I'm competing. I was an athlete. I was at a Sambo tournament, which is Russian wrestling in Virginia. Guy I competed against was a recruiter, Marine Corps recruiter. He had me pretty convinced that, hey, that was the path I wanted to go. 3 days later, I run into a friend of mine who I had wrestled with in high school, who had started with a direct selling company out of California. He was a couple years older than me. And I had great respect for this guy. Not only was he an elite wrestler, but he was also an elite student.
Yeah.
And by the way, I do believe, for any young people listening, student first, athlete second, by the way. But anyway, all that said, this guy says to me that week, he says, listen, you can start your own business for $32. Wow. So I wrote him a check, and I said, hold the check for a couple of days, because I didn't have $32. This was 1983, by the way. And he was kind enough to do that. And what happened was, between April 18th, 83 and May 18th, 83, 1 month, a couple things happened. Number one, I'm about to graduate college, Seton Hall University, South Orange, New Jersey. They announced that President Reagan is going to be the commencement speaker. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, I'm out selling these products. They were weight loss and energy products. And I'm out selling them, and I make $800. Now, remember, I didn't have $32 to write a check on April 18th, but on May 18th, I have $800 in my pocket. And as you recall, back then, people didn't have credit cards.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, when I said I had $800, I had $800. It was $800 in my pocket. Now, that wasn't all profit. It was about $480 of that was profit. The rest was a reallocation of money I spent on the product. But lo and behold, Reagan talks about the fact that in 1932, height of the Depression, he goes back to be a lifeguard after he graduated college. And he's looking, like a lot of young people, looking for his path in life. He talks to a successful businessman. And at that time, they used to call Reagan Dutch, which makes no sense because he was Irish, but they called him Dutch for whatever reason. So this successful businessman says, well, Dutch, here's what you do. You find a business you're passionate about, and you find a mentor to teach you that business. Well, that's pretty basic advice, but pretty good advice, right?
Yeah.
And by the way, Reagan had that ability to speak like you and I are right now, where we're talking to each other. There's 4,000 people in that audience that day. And I felt like he and I were having a conversation one-on-one.
And you're right about that. Yes.
He just had that ability. The guy was magic. Such a great communicator. Anyway, so Reagan makes that speech. I hear that day, and I'm thinking, maybe I found my path. 1 month later, it wasn't exactly to the day. It wasn't the 18th. I don't remember what the actual calendar day was. But in June, I went to my first ever real business meeting in Hartford, Connecticut. And the guy doing the meeting, a guy named Larry Thompson, was quoting Jim Rohn. Never heard of Larry Thompson, never heard of Jim Rohn at that point in my life, right? Larry became a very close friend. Jim became a friend. Yeah. And anyway, I hear Larry Thompson say, for things to change, you have to change. And for things to get better, you have to get better. And I'm like, whoa, nobody's ever told me that. I'm thinking it's the economy or my parents or where I went to school that matters. I'm thinking, no, all of that is irrelevant.
Yeah.
And what I did, I got that message from Thompson via Jim Rohn's words. And I got myself to the free public library on every occasion that I possibly could. And I started to just go in. And back then, self-development wasn't a term, if you recall. Back then, it was just books by authors. I went in and
that book.
I got introduced to Earl Nightingale. I got introduced to Mary Kay Ash. I got introduced to Dr. Norman Vincent Peale. I got introduced to other people, Charlie Tremendous Jones, and there were others. And I would just go in the library and say, hey, I have a half hour. Let me go just take a book off the shelf and read it. And I would read what this person had to say about whatever it is that they had done in their careers, their lives, etc. Mm-hmm. And I started to adopt some of it as principles for my life. And that's where it started. And that was 1983. So when you ask me, am I going to stop because my driver's license says that I'm a little bit older and my hair, every time I get it cut, it's like, where'd this gray stuff come? Who owns this gray hair? I'm not going to stop, Verner, just like you're not, because there's too many good young people out there we need to influence in the right way and give them the philosophies, the strategies, and the tactics so that they can take it not only for themselves, but for the next generation that follows.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's a responsibility that we have when we've been blessed with all of this knowledge to pass it along to the next generation, not just say, hey, I got mine and the heck with everybody else. Hey, let's keep passing it along for as long as we possibly can.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And obviously my resume is different than yours. I mean, you, like I indicate, you're a man of many talents. And so, I mean, in the short period of time, and I like to still consider we're still at the short period of time. We haven't been around forever, but we've been around long enough to learn some things. So in terms of just people starting things or feeling about themselves, and I know you mentioned the motivation books, you know, and at the time, like you said, we were reading those books, but now it's required reading in terms of getting your mental state together. I mean, is that something that you still believe in terms of motivating yourself and moving forward?
Absolutely. And to your question, because I actually didn't answer your question. That is one thing I do find as I get a little older. Sometimes I don't answer the question fully. So let me come back to your question. Should people start something? Yes. Everybody that listens to our call should find something. Now, I don't care if you're a school teacher, you're a truck driver, you're a whatever you are, you have a profession, you say that's paying the bills. That's terrific. But folks, we're living in a unique age because of AI. We're living in an age where you're probably going to be replaced at some time by a robot. I hope this is not news to you. I was in your wonderful city for the A4M convention, and myself and a colleague got into a cab, what we thought was a cab. It was an Uber. And we looked at each other, and the car started moving, and we both were like, whoa. The car was being driven electronically and took us to our destination, no problem. Now, if that's not a wake-up call, I don't know what is, but the first time that it happens, you kind of go, whoa, this is very interesting. There's a restaurant here in Dallas I've been served by a robot, for example. But anyway, all that said, I'm not telling anybody anything that they don't know, but here's what I can tell you, folks. Prepare as if whatever you're doing now is not going to be there in the future. If it is, terrific. There's certain professions that will be there. But prepare. Now, here's the good news. There's so much material and so much opportunity. If you like direct selling, like you and I do, for example, find a good network marketing product, to President Reagan's advice, or that man's advice to President Reagan anyway, that you're passionate about. You like skincare? Find a great skincare company. There's many of them. You like weight loss? There's great weight loss companies. You like financial services? There's great companies like Primerica, Legal Shield, et cetera, that have financial products. You don't like selling? Hey, find what it is that you are passionate about. Find that lane of self-employment that you can participate in the economy with that. Okay. If you're the best florist, for example, in your community, well, that's not going to go out of style. People are going to want flowers. Valentine's Day's around the corner. Easter's after that. I mean, what I'm saying is there's always a place in the market for talented, hardworking people with ingenuity That will never go away.
Yeah.
Maybe the manual labor part will go away because of the robot. So that's what I mean about being willing, able, and desirous of being able to replace yourself. We all have to realize that we can be replaced. Okay. So prepare for that by saying, what can I do? And ask yourself, and this goes back to when I started, by the way, 43 years ago. I always ask myself every day, what can I do better?
Yeah.
What can I do better? Should I have talked to more people today? Should I have made more phone calls today? Should I have knocked on more doors today? Whatever it is that your thing is, how do you get better at it? How do you constantly be sharpening that proverbial sword to make yourself better at what you do? Does that mean you have to practice your sales presentation? If you're in sales, does that mean you practice it in front of the mirror? Yeah. Yeah. I did an interview last week with a guy who was one of Herbalife's original distributors, 39 years. His upline was Mark Hughes. Mm-hmm. And Mark used to say, what do you do when you get tired of talking to fat people? Talk to more fat people. Okay.
That's awesome. Yes.
What do you do? Brian Carruthers, legendary Legal Shield leader. Yeah. Okay. My very close friend who I had a little bit of mentoring in Brian's career early on. It's still a very dear friend of mine. Brian Carruthers, that guy, he's still 30 years in his business. The guy still sponsored 10, 20, 30 people a month.
Yeah.
Okay. And I can give example after example in network marketing because that's an industry I know, right? But insurance is an industry I know a little bit. Okay. There's guys in that industry that are still at the top. Now, why are any of those individuals still at the top of their game? Yeah. Because they're still working at it as if it were day one. Now, let me give you the flip side of that. The flip side of that is when I was a young man, I started in network marketing. My first company had a challenge with the Food and Drug Administration in 85. I got in the insurance business, got licensed. I was studying to be a COU. I took insurance very, very serious. I really studied it, became very, very good at not only selling it, but understanding it and the numbers and everything. And I was working with MetLife, and they eventually put me into an office. And I'm not swearing here, Verner, but it's going to sound like it.
Go ahead.
They put me in an office with a guy named Mehdi Fakazadi. And Mehdi, yeah, I know. Mehdi Fakazadi. And if you don't know anybody Persian, Mehdi is like Joe in Farsi. Okay, so a lot of guys named Mehdi. But anyway, Mehdi was the number one sales representative of the Metropolitan Life Insurance Company, number one in the world out of 100,000 sales reps. And I'm working in this office, and I'll never forget this. I have a client at 5:00 in the morning who was a contractor, building contractor. And my dad was an electrician. So my dad introduced me to this guy. The guy said, hey, you want to do business with me? I'm up at 3. You buy me breakfast at 5. I'm off to work. You can't see me at 8:00 at night. I'm in bed.
Yeah.
I said, fair enough. I got up early. I went and I had breakfast with this guy, and I wrote a disability income policy and made about $1,500, which was a lot of money, 1986, I think it was. Yeah. Anyway, I bring the policy to the office because in those days you had to bring it manually, and the office did their thing and send it over to New York for processing and underwriting. Anyway, I get there and I'm sitting at my little desk and I hear rattling around and I'm thinking, ooh, somebody's in the building. It's like 7:00 in the morning. There's nobody in the building normally. I'm like, But then again, I'm not there at 7:00 in the morning, but I'm like, wow, somebody's rambling around. I go in the coffee area. Who's in there? Mehdi Fakazadi, the legend, the number one guy. I'm like 24 years old. Here, he's about 60 at the time.
Yeah.
And I have so much respect for him. I could not call him Mehdi. I would either call him Mr. Mehdi, okay, or sir. And I go, I'm like, no, but now we're just two guys having a cup of coffee. I said, good morning, Mr. Mehdi. I said, what are you doing here so early? He goes, oh, I already wrote a policy. Me too. So we high five.
Yeah.
And I said, I have to ask you, because this guy was already making 7 figures. This is in the 80s. 7 figures in the 80s is a lot of money. And I said, it's funny. His son actually became my mother's orthopedist. So that's another story. But anyway, and he did it. The boy was at that time in medical school. Anyway, so I said, what are you doing here so early? He said, well, I wrote a policy. He said, but I said, I don't understand something. Why are you working so hard? He said, when I came from Iran, not speaking much English, not having an insurance license, not having anything. I came from Iran, basically, during the whole overthrow there with the Shah and all that period of time with Iran, which we're kind of reliving right now in the news every day, right? But anyway, he said, he made a great point, and I want to make this point for your listeners, Vernon. He said, when I started, it was so hard. Business, as you get older and more experienced and you figure out what you're doing, gets easy. He says, for me now, it's easy. He said, that doesn't mean writing policies is easy. He says, but it's easy because I have so many clients, so many people that I built up, and I know what I'm doing. I'm a professional at what I do.
Yeah. Second nature.
So if you've got a little bit of gray in your hair like I do, okay, don't give up because you look at your license and somebody says, well, you should be retired. Well, if you want to retire because you really hate what you do, that's one thing. But if you're good at what you do and you feel like you still have the ability to affect people in a positive way, and obviously make some money along the way, okay, for yourself, your family, and maybe your heirs down the road, you need to continue to do it. Don't give it up because society says that at a certain age you should stop doing. No.
Right.
Same thing. And here's the other John Solleder. The other John Solleder is the guy who's at the gym every day. I'd rather be the oldest guy at the gym than the youngest guy in the nursing home.
Okay? That's awesome. Yes.
So that's another philosophy. Okay, don't worry that you're not going to keep up with the 25-year-old kid on the treadmill. Don't worry about that. Don't worry that you can't lift the weights that some 30-year-old beast can lift. You do what you can do, and that's the same in business. Hey, there are limitations, right? I get tired. I get tired earlier than I used to at night sometimes. Yeah. Sometimes at night, I 8 o'clock, that's it. And I had it, watch a little TV, go to bed.
Go to bed.
But at the end of the day, that's fine. You give into those things that are just kind of the process of time. But at the end of the day, don't give up on what you know. And you have a lot to share with people that you can inspire them with, teach them with, coach them with. So there's no reason to stop because you're a certain age. Now, should everybody in America, Canada, wherever you're listening to this show, have a side business? Absolutely. Just go read Robert Kiyosaki's book about Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and you'll understand exactly what we're talking about. It's already been written. I don't need to state it. Go read Robert's book, and it'll make total sense to you why you need a side hustle, side business, whatever you want to call it what you want, but have something going on the side. In America, we're behind the times. Yeah. I spent a lot of time in Mexico. I built a very large business in Mexico, over 1 million salespeople in my network just in Mexico. The Mexican people have this. You go to Mexico, somebody might teach school, but on the weekend they have a kiosk, for example, where they're selling something that either they make or they buy that they're reselling. A lot of the Latin countries follow suit. Colombia, okay, for example, okay, follow suit with that. The Dominican Republic, all right. I know those countries. I've traveled to a lot of countries, but those countries in particular, everybody's got something on the side that they're doing, okay, and yes, it's out of need, but at the same time, it's always like, well, if business A, I get laid off, I get fired, I've got business B that I'm developing. Jim Rohn said it best, right? While I'm working at my job, I'm working part-time on my fortune.
Yeah. Right? I remember. Yes. I remember that. I mean, one of the things, as I'm listening to you and bringing back memories of things that I went through in terms of IBM, Wang Laboratories, and the physical things that we had to do to be successful in those environments sometimes. Today, it's AI, like you mentioned AI. And some people think, well, AI is going to take my job. You're right about that. In some cases, it will. But I propose that you look at AI from a different perspective. How can you work within this environment and benefit from it? Because if you're working in a warehouse doing loading and those kinds of things, it's going to be a robot that's going to replace that. But who's going to be working with those robots to manage that environment? And so I'm hearing what you're saying in terms of don't give up, get that side hustle and do some things, because let's say in a lot of cases, $500 a month extra can be amazing benefit for you and the family. And so that's what I keep proposing. Whether you like direct sales or whether you like being behind the scenes, AI has an opportunity for you to move forward and do some things like that. I mean, you have been that individual that's continuing to build and upgrade and and earn income for yourself, I mean, as a side portion, because I know you're going through life right now where you're just enjoying yourself. You don't care about the money. You're just enjoying yourself. So, but I think part of this too, as I've researched you a little bit, I think it has something to do with branding, about who you are. Mm-hmm. How did you put yourself in that situation that you're the product that you're promoting as opposed to the other things that are out there?
Well, because here's what I did. Okay. I've been successful in 4 network marketing companies, but I've never taken on the identity of the company. Okay. And I could have, I mean, my company right now, I've been with 30 years. Okay. So I am identified with it. I'm identified with glutathione. I'm identified with a lot of things, but at the end of the day, I don't own the companies. Yeah. So at the end of the day, I always worked on the number one product that I had to work on, which is John. I never said, well, I'm just so loyal to the company that I'm a company man. No, I've never been a company man. Matter of fact, I probably have a lot of company owners through the years that don't like me because I won't take on an identity being a company man. Like, I will disagree with them. Now, I'm not going to disagree with them publicly and embarrass them. Right. But when you've been doing something 43 years, you kind of seen the good, the bad, the ugly. When you worked with Mark Hughes and Jim Rohn and Larry Thompson and Charlie Regis and Bobby Depew and some of the people I worked with that created the direct selling industry. Right on. And then you see some investment banker, guy with a silver spoon in his mouth, has never done a day's work in his life, but went to a great university because his dad was a billionaire. Well, I don't have the same level of respect. I don't disrespect that person as a person. Don't get me wrong what I'm saying here. Mm-hmm. But when I look at direct selling, okay, just to make a point, Mary Kay Ash, the great Mary Kay, Dr. Shackley, founder of Shackley Corporation, Mark Hughes, founder of Herbalife, Rich DeVos, Jay Van Andel, the founders of Amway Corporation. Okay. Yeah. And I'll throw Harlan Stonecipher in there, the founder of Prepaid Legal, now called Legal Shield. And I'll throw Art Williams in there as well. Okay. And there's others. And I no disrespect meant to any of the others. Every one of those people I just mentioned had sleepless nights where they went out, they had their product in the trunk of their car and they missed their kid's little league game. And they sat across from some family for 2 hours. And at the end, the family said, hey, this is great, Art, or this is great, Mary, or this is great, whoever. But I got to talk to my accountant in Chicago. And you're thinking, I just missed my kid's little league game. Yeah. And you didn't buy. Well, if you've been an investment banker and you grew up with going to the best schools and everything else, and you buy a direct selling company, there's no way in the world that you understand what those people did, and you sure as heck don't understand what this guy's done. Right. Okay. Right. Now, once again, I don't disrespect you. I don't dislike you. I love you. But at the end of the day, and I love the fact that you want to buy a company in our industry, but they're messing up our industry for the most part because they're coming in and they're looking at only the bottom line revenue rather than top line revenue. They don't understand what the independent salesperson does and how hard they work and how difficult it is at times and how you have those sleepless nights where you say, am I ever going to sell another product? Am I ever going to recruit another person? Okay. Unless you've had those, you can't relate to that. Right. I mean, I can, my wife had 4 babies. Okay. I was there for them. But at the end of the day, I can't relate to having a baby. I watched you have a baby, but I can't have a baby. And neither can those people. You can't have those experiences. So that's something that I see as problematic, and it's getting solved. There's a lot of companies now being sold to bigger companies. Happened again this week. Okay. Yeah. A company called It Works was sold to a company called Zinzino over in Europe. And so it's happening more and more where some of the companies are just saying, hey, we're not making it financially. And to their credit, I'll give these people credit, they're teaming up with bigger companies that are taking them over so the distributors have the continuity of income. So that's a good thing. That's a good thing. It's kind of figure rather than just closing the doors and saying, well, thank you very much. They're now at least saying, hey, let us get in bed with a bigger outfit. Let this be somebody else's used car, so to speak. Let them figure it out. So that's a good thing, So I think like everything, there's a metamorphosis going on in the direct selling world. And by the way, the network marketing or direct selling industry is not the only industry going through that. There's a lot of industries going through that because of change. Because here's the real thing. Through every industrial revolution, and we are in one now. We're in what I consider to be the third industrial revolution right now is being driven by AI. Yeah. And everything that you and I are talking about right now in terms of job replacement and people having to reinvent themselves and get some new skills, right? Well, when the wagon wheel kind of went out of fashion and Henry Ford and Mercedes Daimler and some of the other car companies came along and started to make an automobile that was affordable, and people started saying, wow, this is a great way. I can get from Dallas to Tulsa to see my family in 4 hours instead of 4 days.
Yeah.
I'm sure there were people in that time that say, oh, wow, either it's not going to last or I'm not going to get one of those for whatever reason. Okay, that's AI. Okay, AI's here, folks. It's not coming. I was in your city actually for the Steve Aoki event back in September.
Okay.
And I wish we had met then, Verner. We could have dinner together.
But that's great. That would have been great.
Next time I go. But Ray Kurzweil, and that name may not mean anything to a lot of people, but Ray Kurzweil is a futurist, very well-respected guy. You can look him up, people. His last name is Kurzweil, I think, or something like that. You can Google it and find him. He put up a chart about the speed of how fast AI was going. And that by 2027, which is next year already, how it would be able to almost be to the point where it was humanistic. Well, that's actually happened in 2026. We're hearing reports right now. Absolutely. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing. It's not up to me to know if it's a good thing or bad thing. What I do know is it's happening, whether I wanted to, whether you wanted to, whether Ray Kurzweil wants it to. It's happening where it's becoming sentient. In other words, where it's thinking like a human being. That could be a good thing. It could be a bad thing for obvious reasons. So at the end of the day, though, it is what it is. But we are in that third industrial revolution. And just like the people with the wagon wheel saying, well, I don't know if this car thing's going to last. Well, it kind of did.
But it is. Right? But it is. But, and the thing about that is, unfortunately, gee whiz, I just get excited. We could have had this conversation 3 hours, be going and not cover everything. Look, tell people how they can reach you, because we need to tie this up and get out of here. So
we need to do about 8 interviews, interviewing each other back and forth, because we both earned this gray hair.
That's right. That's right.
Probably the best way, folks. There's a lot of ways to reach me. You can find me on all the different social medias, Facebook, YouTube. You can find my show on YouTube if you like. But probably the best way is just go to John Solleder, SOLLEDER.com. And there's a way you can send me a message through that if you want. Or once again, Facebook or YouTube, either one you can reach me on. Or LinkedIn. Also, I'm on LinkedIn also under my name. Like, I don't hide from anybody. I do return messages, sometimes not as quickly as I should, but I do return messages.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here. I'm so excited that you took my offer to be on my show. And I hope everybody else have enjoyed what you've laid down today as well. And we don't have to do this again. I mean, that's the bottom line. But to the rest of you folks out there, again, I hope you're having a blessed day and continue to be blessed. And I want you to know the best is yet to come. So thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it. Have a blessed one. Thank you. Bye-bye.
This podcast is brought to you by NVisionU. NVisionU has discovered how to impact spirit, body, and soul with spray technology in just 30 seconds. With NVisionU, you can achieve optimal health and start living the life you have always dreamed of. Use the promo code NVisionU.com/VernDix to take control of your health naturally. PR Connections Radio thanks you for watching this podcast. Check out more episodes of this show and our others at prconnectionsradio.com.